What's going on, y'all? Minutes with Mellon. Take long videos and make them shorter. So, two, I mean, there's like five major things that happened this week, but we're just going to cover two of them. One's what they're doing in Chicago with all the fucking illegals, and then the other one is yet again more vaccines, more booster shots, more bullshit. This shit's getting crazy. But yeah, let's burrow. There we go. So yeah, J.J. Carroll talking.
But I knew Chicago was the epicenter. And you're right. What scares the power structures more than anything, Clayton, is a big white man standing next to a big black man, both alpha males, one in law enforcement, one in the prison system, and realizing we have enormous amounts in common. We agree on the majority of everything. And the things that we don't agree on, we can civilly talk and come to a good conclusion because we're Americans. But when you take us and we're looking at the same problem and we're saying the source of that problem is the government. The government is destroying you. Why would I not help my brother? I don't care what race he is or what religion. He's my American brother and sister. Why would I not help him? That's going to be the call to America because, as I say in my interviews, if you think it's going to be contained in this bubble in Chicago, you're a fool. It's already spread across America. There's 45 million illegal aliens in America right now. 45 million. And I spoke to a female precinct leader in the GOP. There's only two GOP offices, I think, in all of Illinois. One of them is in Southside. And she tells me, she goes, do you think this is coincidental, JJ? You think this is just happenstance that the black population is decreasing in Chicago? They're about 700,000-ish. Do you think it has no meaning that the mayor Johnson 2 weeks ago said out loud, we're bringing in 700,000 illegal aliens? It's a one for one. They're replacing us. And I didn't even use the word replacement. They all did. I'm talking from the highest level intellect down to street level knowledge and everyone in between. We are being replaced. We are being replaced. And I'm like, wow, they're on the front lines. And as these men told me, these gang members told me, if they think they're going to take it from me, they got another thing coming. We're armed to the teeth. We got 100-round drums. We got clips, magazines that have 30 rounds in them. We're not going without a fight. That's petrifying. I don't want that in America, but I'm telling you, Clayton, I was down. I saw how these illegal aliens live. They're staying in accommodations in the highest rent areas of Chicago, downtown. They are staying in buildings that are shadowed by the Department of Justice building. They're doing pimping, prostitution, drugs, fighting. And our brothers and sisters, I literally walked from a tent compound where American citizens, veterans are living in squalor. The stench of feces and urine was overwhelming. I leave that to go to illegals living in luxury. They've taken over a whole city block. Clayton, here's the final thing one thing I want to impress upon. When you and I talked about me walking on the border in San Diego, in the area that I bled on to control that, and that feeling I had that I was in enemy territory, that they owned it. I was in Chicago when the vast majority, there were hundreds of military age adult men from Venezuela, majority from Venezuela. They looked at me like, what are you doing? This is our neighborhood. Get out. This is what's happening to America. You are being replaced. What do you do when you go into war? You take land. It's called occupying property. They're occupying America and they're pushing us out. 45 million going on 50 million strong. And the other thing I want to say, that as I travel and I see it, I went from leaving the United States Border Patrol 3 years ago when the NGOs didn't really know what they were doing. The NGOs on the South Side bringing the caravans up didn't know. The government just created this chaos because they wanted to destroy America. And it was all chaotic and clunky. No longer, Clayton. I'm watching an industrial strength, the industrial size operation that is streamlined and efficient from the Darian Gap to Chicago. I have never seen anything like this big and this perfectly orchestrated. It is unbelievable.
It must have felt like a whole different world. I mean, I've been to Chicago many times. I can't imagine. You know, you feel like you're a foreigner in your own country, walking down those streets of Chicago.
Well, you know what was amazing too is what, when you watch this video that Mark Carter, when he and I are talking, he takes me across the street to those tent cities, the tent compound. Hundreds of people live in there. Drug addicts, everything. It's just a horrible, miserable way for any human to live. And I'm interviewing several of them, and they tell me the stories of during the winter, how they're getting frostbite on their toes and their fingers. Clayton, 200 yards away is the illegal immigrant intake center. They have 5 tents that look like the beautiful white wedding tents with beautiful signage where they feed, clothe, and medicate them. And then if it's too cold, Clayton, they put them on 5 city buses that stay running 24 hours a day so they can warm up. U.S. citizens were knocking on the doors of the bus saying, please let me in, as illegal aliens were sitting there getting warm, eating freshly cooked food with brand new clothes, and our Americans are knocking on the bus. And you know what the bus driver said? Only illegal aliens allowed. This is not hyperbole. I'm not making this up. This is what's happening to our nation. And it's unfair. You and I can have a discussion, Clayton, about how much money we give, how do we fix the homeless problem. But the one discussion we can't have any disagreement on, do you take care of American citizens first? Or do you make them stay and sleep in the freezing cold while I take care of foreign nationals that broke our nation's laws and I give them everything they need? When I was coming out of those homeless shelters, the illegal alien migrant hotels, you know what I saw? I saw men wearing very nice clothes, extremely clean, watches, jewelry. Another thing I saw, Clayton, they were jumping in and out of vehicles that they bought that had no license plates, no anything. And I'm told by Chicago PD officers, we're not allowed to stop them. We know who they are. They get to drive licenseless, plateless, anything. Just, it's anarchy. It's anarchy. And I will tell you this, I talked to several lieutenants within the Chicago PD, and they told me the plan was to have no plan, meaning just chaos. These are soldiers, frontline law enforcement guys telling me this is a disaster. And they tell me also the DNC comes in August. They said, prepare. It's going to be beyond insane. Crime, rampant, BLM, anarchists, illegal aliens, gang members says, we're not prepared. That's a quote, we are not prepared. That's why you're seeing the DNC thinking about canceling their convention.
And you said they're not.
The dude looks like he's got bitter beer face.
No, got me.
It's not the 75-year-old's first brush with COVID, but this round is much worse.
Knocked me over. First time was a breeze compared to this. Aches, coughing, ribs are sore from the coughing. I don't like it.
Okay, I wonder how that worked on you. Was that scary? He had a bad cold and he really didn't like it.
6 shots.
Yes. Well, I mean, if he'd spent more time reading the data and less time going to get COVID boosters, he would know that every booster he gets increases his risk of contracting COVID. We've had real world data to show that since at least 2022, and the CDC last year admitted that with the BA.2.86 variant, that it is more capable of causing infection to people who have previously had COVID or received COVID vaccines. So vaccination is a risk factor for getting COVID. We've seen that playing out. Why did that guy not know this when he was going to get 6 shots? Now, given the fact that we are told that the vaccine does about the same thing for every strain, which it just makes your COVID easier. That's what they're saying the vaccine does, which has never been proven, there is no reason to believe that the current vaccine will not also be a risk factor for the flirt variant. But the news tells us, get the vaccine anyway. Listen.
Driving the fresh threat, a family of highly contagious new subvariants called flirt, with seniors and at-risk people who haven't had a recent booster vaccination being urged to get one.
Those people are still very susceptible, particularly with these new variants, and with case numbers rising, that will result in hospitalisations and people not surviving.
Okay, so is there any data that people would survive if they had a COVID vaccine? No, there is not. Why do reporters let them keep saying that? I wonder. I mean, a proper question from that reporter would be, well, do we know that the previous vaccine actually prevented any deaths? No, we don't. And I will say this until I'm blue in the face, because every time the news tells you that the vaccine does something, we have to look back at the data that tells us exactly what the vaccine did and whether it worked. For instance, so there's 2 studies that are used when people say the vaccine worked and saved lives. It's this one we've talked about a lot. It demonstrated clinically meaningful levels of protection because they compared rates of death on ventilated people who had COVID vaccine. They found that the people whose vaccines were more recent were less likely to die on a ventilator or get on a ventilator or die. However, they also found that unvaccinated people were less likely to get on the ventilator in the first place. So that study is bullshit. Once you actually look at that, this is the other one that people cite when they say that the COVID vaccine worked. This one estimates the number of lives saved by the COVID vaccine. It proves nothing. What they did was took an expected math model of deaths and concluded because the world never reached that level of deaths, it must have been the vaccine. That also it's full of holes, that study. So when people say, oh yes, the COVID vaccine worked, these are the only 2 studies that they use to cite this. So we don't actually have anything reliable when people say this about the vaccine. So if you do your homework, as a journalist, would you go to press saying that this COVID vaccine will help the new strain when you have no data at all to support this? Of course, though, the current vaccine on the market was not clinically trialed like the first rounds of COVID, and it was certainly not designed for this variant. So how do we know that the current vaccine will help against flirt? We don't at all. Here's what Johns Hopkins said about it, that, the vaccine against JN1, which is the previous variant, was designed around XBB.1.5, but it does generate some cross-reactive bodies, but studies have not yet been done. So that's the kicker right there. We know they have not studied it against this variant. Novavax said that its vaccine was actually tested against this variant in macaques and showed some protection, but this one is not currently on the market. So what we're looking at here, this variant is KP.
You're talking about macaws?
KP2. No, not macaques. Macaques are the monkeys.
Macaques.
Macaques. Sorry, I always say that wrong. No, we're looking at KP.2 in their vaccine against. And so they're only testing for contraction, I believe. So this variant, though, will spread in the United States, and it is currently spreading in the United States. Here are the numbers. You look here, the KP.2. KP.2. No, not that one, the next one. I get confused about where they're putting one more. Yes, this chart. So what we're looking at is in gray, is how much KP.2 is spreading throughout the United States. And we see that it's increasing week by week. But hospitalization rates, even though you see that this new strain is spreading, hospitalization rates and death rates look like this. It's negligible.
So go out and get your booster.
Right. So they're telling you, new strain, get a booster. But when you actually look into the data, well, does the booster cover the strain? No. Does the original COVID vaccine actually prevent more severe COVID? No data on that. Okay. Do we have a problem with hospitalizations and deaths? No. But they're telling you anyway, so we'll see how many people that works on. But they still are saying to wear a mask and test. If you want to do that, go ahead. We've covered the masking data. We did that recently, I think as recent as next week. You can wear a mask if you want. I don't want to get testicular cancer, so I'm not gonna.
That's funny because nobody was listening to her joke. It makes it even more funnier.
That's a little joke there because I don't have any testicles. Did you
Oh, yeah?
pick that one up?
Sorry, I was reading the chat.
Oh, I thought you would laugh. 'Cause
About what, testicles?
I don't have any.
I laughed, but I was muted,
Oh, okay.
so I'll laugh again.
Thank you. Thank you for laughing at my
Yeah,
joke.
no problem.
Okay. So let
So fucking awkward.
me know how afraid you
Your Wednesday, we're going to talk about this American Airlines story, which is absolutely outrageous.
Now, the American Airlines lawsuit, holy shit. This fucking dude taped his phone to a toilet seat and was watching, like, kids go to the bathroom. It's fucking gross. And I didn't get to the head removal surgery, but that shit looks dope as fuck. You're supposed to be able to take your consciousness and put it into a different body. What? Like the fucking movie? Like, that's insane. So I'm gonna go watch that. But, dude, I'm telling you, this fucking COVID shit is ridiculous as fuck. This is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Just get booster after booster after booster. That's gonna destroy your fucking DNA and make you not be able to fight off any fucking disease ever. So when you do get the regular flu, you fucking die. Like, they're trying to fucking kill you. Your own government is trying to fucking kill you. Like, it is unfucking believable. And this actually breaks it down, like what it does, like the mRNA and how it just attaches to you. Destroys your fucking...
Everyone watching this video right
If you remember
now
the one
has the
video I did like a couple days ago that they had to pull it from the fucking shelf. They had to pull the fucking booster shot from the shelf because it was killing more people than it saved.
very same question in their mind. What in the world is a self-amplifying mRNA vaccine? Well, to answer that question, let's compare this new vaccine to the quote-unquote normal mRNA vaccines, like the ones from Pfizer and Moderna. Here's how the normal mRNA vaccines work. Whether it's Pfizer or Moderna, this is the basic outline. You have a strand of modified mRNA, which contains in it a sequence for making the spike protein of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. That's the part in red. And the strand of RNA is protected by a layer of lipid nanoparticles, which dissolves in the process of getting the RNA strand into the body's cells. Then, once the RNA strand is delivered into the human cell, the cell's machinery takes it, it manufactures the spike protein that's encoded in the RNA, and that spike protein then leads ultimately to the immune response. Now, of course, that's an extremely simplified version of how that process works, but that is generally how it works. That is how the typical mRNA vaccines that have been on the market for the past 3 years now, that's how they operate. However, these new self-amplifying mRNA vaccines, they take this process to another level by integrating the genes that are needed to replicate the RNA. Here's how that looks. The self-amplifying RNA vaccine contains two separate genes. First, there's the gene for the spike protein, that's the part in red, but then also, secondly, it contains the gene for a protein called replicase, which is what allows the RNA to self-replicate, that's the part in yellow. And so the way it works is that once this vaccine enters the human cell, the gene that's marked in yellow gets encoded by the body's cell into the protein called replicase. And that protein then allows for the vaccine's RNA to be copied over and over and over again. And as you can see, using this self-amplifying method, the end effect is that the cell now has significantly more of this RNA inside of it. This then leads to significantly more production of the spike protein, and then subsequently, in theory, more antibodies. In summary, here is how an article over in Nature magazine described the difference between the conventional mRNA vaccine and this new SA mRNA vaccine. Quote, conventional mRNA-based COVID shots consist mainly of the genetic instructions for a viral protein that are surrounded by regulatory sequences. A cell's machinery produces the protein for as long as these instructions persist, and that protein, known as an antigen, stimulates an immune response. By contrast, saRNA jabs go a step further by integrating the genes needed for the replication and synthesis of the antigen encoding RNA, effectively establishing a biological printing press for fabricating the vaccine inside cells. Now, in terms of the supposed benefits of using this new self-amplification technology, the researchers who developed it, they say that the main benefit is the fact that because the RNA portion of the vaccine copies itself over and over and over again, well, you don't need to inject as much RNA into a person's arm. And therefore, at least in theory, there should be fewer side effects. And indeed, the amount of substance injected into a person's arm is significantly less with this new method. For instance, in a recent study of the sa-mRNA vaccine, each trial participant was given 2 doses, and each dose contained only 5 micrograms of RNA. You compare that to the Pfizer shot, which contains 30 micrograms per shot, and the Moderna shot, which contains 100 micrograms per shot. And so it's true. In terms of raw payload, the sa-mRNA vaccine delivers significantly less RNA. In fact, here's how the rationale of the researchers behind this new vaccine was laid out in the pages of a Nature magazine article. Quote, "People often think that the sa-RNA vaccine platform is simply a variation on conventional mRNA shots, but in practice, it's really not. sa-RNA is a totally different beast. Because of its virus-like nature, sa-RNA interacts with the immune system in distinctive ways that could prove beneficial across a range of disease scenarios. Vaccine doses. The COVID self-amplifying RNA vaccine requires 1/10 to 1/3 using the amount of vaccine administered in each injection. The mRNA vaccine seems comparable to that of will help to mitigate the severity of aches, fevers. Researchers are claiming that by injecting less RNA into the arm, the person might, in theory, experience less side effect reactions. That's one supposed benefit. Like proteins will be encoded, leading to bigger and longer protection. However, over the last several years, I've read multiple studies, including this one here that's found on the American Heart Association's website, as well as this other one here found on the NIH website, showing that the spike protein is linked to many different problems, such as injury to the heart muscle, brain fog, general inflammation, among many, many other things. And so, after reading through how this new technology works,
They did not try to get that money out.